Hi, I'm Kenji.
I'm Vic.
And I'm Tim.
And welcome to the DSPA episode 13. This is our 13th newscast. We're not going to consider it unlucky. It's going to be a lucky one for us. And we're going to talk a little bit about some drone laws that are on the books, AAAC, a little bit about Kenji's work on the BVLOS Aviation Rulemaking Committee, a little bit about the Film Commission in Seattle, and of course, Oregon Parks. But first, let's give Tim the floor a minute. Tim, you're a new member, DSPA. In our last membership meeting, you said, I would like to become involved. So we took you up on that.
Yes, you did.
Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and why you're here.
Sure. So, like you said, I'm a new member of DSPA, and I guess to kind of backtrack, when I was actually a professional DJ before I became an attorney, and throughout that time, I started around 2010, and at the time, I saw the kind of transition from photographers using, a handheld Sony Alpha to also providing drone services. So that's kind of where I saw kind of the prevalence of drones. And then fast forward to 2015, I wrote a paper in law school about precision agriculture and drone law. So I've always kind of envisioned keeping up with the prevalence and the laws. And when I decided to open my own practice, which I no longer have, I wanted to niche myself, and drones was a great way to do that. So it was good for marketing, advertising, but it was also kind of fun for me too. So I'm now working at the law firm Long and Robinson here in Kansas City. They allowed me to keep that practice, and I'm also helping them with their kind of commercial real estate side of things. So that's kind of a Cliff Notes version of where I came and now where I'm at. But it's great to be here with you guys. And you did say you're going to regret saying that you want to be more involved. So I don't regret it now. But
you won't yet.
Now, can you DJ parties still?
Yeah, I can. If
you got all the equipment too? So
yeah, I kept it. I'm not getting rid of that stuff.
Sweet. So
man of many talents, right brain and left brain. I love that.
Oh yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, creative side. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what are we going to start with? We're going to start with let's start with one actually, Tim, you know about. It's the Missouri bill.
Yes.
So we can talk a little bit about that. We'll tell people what it's about and kind of just get some information on it. And this is House Bill 1619. There's no Senate bill, right? It's just a House bill at this point.
Yeah.
There's no sister bill.
Okay. I don't think so.
I haven't found one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this one's kind of interesting because it's basically trying to prevent state agencies or subdivisions, municipalities, and really anybody from flying a drone over private property and taking photographs, pictures, live streaming, whatever you can do with the drone, unless you have consent from the property owner. So now there are some exceptions that they list, right? One of them, so Section 7 of this bill actually says, you shall not be guilty if you distribute images and photographs if you transmit that image to another person or via computer. And when I read that, I was like, so what's the point? I can send this to my business partner or my actual partner or my brother, and all of a sudden this doesn't matter anymore. It's a very strange bill, very strange language, and I think it can be misinterpreted by whether it's a person with their commercial pilot's license or whether it's a law enforcement agency or officer using a drone for public use. So the language is a little weird. Kenji, what were your thoughts when you read the bill?
Yeah, it's one of those that's just out there. I mean, it's like, why bother? I get it. There's some concerns that have been brought up and that are under consideration by the legislator that actually wrote the rule. But it begs the question: how does this address the harm, and is it the appropriate tool to address the harm? Because I don't think that this is the right way to approach it. And, is it worth it? I don't know. I don't think so.
You and Scott and I had a off the record. Well, I guess it was sort of on record since he's a legislator, but we talked to him. We had a Zoom meeting with him, and he did incorporate some of the language we talked about, but in a very strange way.
Yeah.
We talked about how it's going to hurt the recreational as well as the commercial. So they added Section 5 says this does not prohibit the use of model aircraft. Okay. I don't get that. I don't understand.
And their description of model aircraft, I printed this out. It's kind of funny. So model aircraft is an unmanned aircraft that is, 1, capable of sustained flight in the atmosphere. Okay. 2, flown within visual line of sight of the person remotely operating the aircraft. And 3, flown for hobby or recreational purposes, right? Well, I'm not sure why they include the visual line of sight, right? So let's say I want to fly beyond visual line of sight. Does that no longer make it a model aircraft? It just, no, it doesn't. But to make that qualifier and to put that qualifier in there, it's just a little strange. This whole bill is strangely written. But I agree with Kenji. I mean, what harm is this addressing, and did they do it the right way? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry, Kenji.
Yeah. What it is they don't want peeping toms. And that's it. And there's better ways to sort of phrase it, where there's a reasonable expectation of privacy, and put some parameters around there. Then you don't run into any First Amendment issues, which that a lot of bills actually end up having. And I think this in itself might have some First Amendment problems, although, with the exceptions, it's like.
Yeah, and we're glad he put the exceptions in. I don't want to be that group of people that make fun of legislators, because that's not how we work.
Yes.
We want to work cooperatively.
He was, legislator is very accommodating. And
he was very nice.
Wonderful.
Wonderful to work with. Is just, I'm wondering if the people who he had write it after we gave him the suggestions I don't think they understand exactly. And it's understandable they don't understand that there are things you really have to be careful of when you're trying to write legislations for legislation that controls the NAS, the National Airspace System. And I don't think they understood that at all. But I also thought it was funny, real quick, what you said. One of the definitions of model aircraft 2A was capable of sustained flight in the atmosphere. So a Frisbee technically is capable of sustained flight if you're really good, right? So I don't know, kite is sustained flight. I don't know. But so I don't see this going anywhere, but we've seen weirder things happen. What do y'all think?
I don't know. I think we just need to monitor it. I mean, that's the biggest thing. And I know there's a bunch of other companies and associations monitoring as well. So
AUVSI is on it. We talked to AMA about it. And
CTA's
they're
on
keeping
it.
Yep. A lot of things. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I just tend to think, one, because I always think the best in people. Maybe that's going to bite me in the butt someday. But I think the legislator's going to look at it and say, okay, yeah, there's already laws that will cover what the concerns are. So why add laws to it to make it so specific to the vehicle being used to break the law?
Yep.
So I don't know. We've said this a lot about different things. So it's
if like regulate the behavior, not the tool that we use for other good things. Yep.
Bingo.
I like that.
Yeah. And it's so if you're in Missouri, look for it. It's a House Bill 1613. And I don't have who the sponsor, doesn't matter who the sponsor is. He was good to work with. I can't, and we always mispronounced his name anyway, so we'd probably slaughter it, but he was a nice guy to work with. Check out that, again, it's the 101st General Assembly, House Bill 1619 in Missouri. So it is, I believe, in committee at the moment. I forgot to check that. And I don't know where it's at from there. So let's then move. Hey, by the way, real quick, before we get too far away, Kenji, were you able to find that Utah one, or did that go away? I couldn't find it today.
I couldn't find it either.
That's weird. So maybe they got smart and put it away. It was one of those aerial trespass things that didn't make any sense. So maybe they just pulled it. we can hope that anyway. But if any of you out there, any of our listeners out there, our viewers know of it, let us know. But I think if Kenji and I can't find something in the legislator record, it's probably not there anymore. But I knew it was a problem for a while. Massachusetts has an interesting one. We talked about this a little bit in some of the forums. That is talking about flying over school zones, and they define school zones as within 50 feet of real property comprising of public or private accredited preschools, accredited Head Start facility, elementary, vocational, or secondary school. So the ban is, it's very short. No person shall operate a small unmanned system within a vertical distance of 400 feet in a school zone without authorization by the superintendent of schools. Kind of interesting that they made it very person specific.
Yeah.
So I found that weird. Now, if you think about it, I guess, and this is Vic's take on it, you probably should not be flying over schools, right? I mean, if you got a bunch of kids out there, they kind of freak out. Personally, whenever I'm flying near a school, I go in and talk to them first. And also I fly over a lot of schools because I get paid to fly schools sometimes by some of my clients. So it's not that big a deal if you think about the fact, we probably shouldn't be doing it anyway. But if you throw into the mix like churches, because how many churches have daycare? How many churches have their own schools? And then just the whole federal preemption thing that I think you guys are kind of pushing it just a little bit here. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, part of the reason why I think this hasn't had much movement is the issue of potential preemption issues. They're talking about limiting how, the altitude of how high you can fly over these certain properties. And so I think that's part of it. But, one thing that I don't really like about this language is, without authorization from the superintendent of the school. And you kind of mentioned that, Vic, it's kind of strange language. But what that does is it sort of implies that there is ownership of that property, of the airspace, right? There's ownership of that airspace. And as we all know, that's in the jurisdiction of the FAA. So, I mean, you have all these rules and bills trying to control the airspace, and it's a question of whether they can actually do that, right? So I think that's part of the reason why we haven't seen a whole lot of action on this. But yeah, I agree that the real issue here is, trying to control something which they have no jurisdiction controlling.
Yep.
Yeah. And to be honest, I get where they're coming from. They don't want the creepo guy checking out the schoolyard and all that stuff. And I get it. But again, it's the legislation bill is not the way to do it. It's just not, it's not nearly tailored to the harm that they're trying to prevent. And I think we got to just keep on hitting that. And you know what? It's going to catch it could catch legitimate operations in there. And you don't want to do that, especially if maybe they're checking out some power lines or taking shots of the real estate next door. And there's so many flights that happen near schools anyways. It's like the superintendent's going to throw a fit if they have to prove every single stupid operation.
Just bugging. So if you're in Massachusetts, just email him and ask him a bunch of stuff. No, it's not law yet. Don't do that. I'm kidding.
Yeah, don't.
Representative Ayers actually proposed this almost a year ago, February 18, 2021. There has not been a lot of movement like we talked about. It was in Transportation Committee for a while. Couldn't find record of what happened to it there, and it's no longer listed in their committee pages. But it did have a joint testimony, I think, last January or on the 20th of last month. But I reached out to Representative Ayers today, just about 3 or 4 hours ago. So I really didn't give him enough time to respond. I should have done it earlier, just asking him where he's at with this bill. So again, if you're in Massachusetts, or if you're going to be in Massachusetts, like most of y'all know, my son lives in Boston. So I do go to Massachusetts and I do fly. We need to make sure that this doesn't go anywhere. But that's Massachusetts House Bill 4183. But we've done it. We don't think it's going anywhere, but doesn't hurt to check.
So quick thing for you. SB 122, that's Utah, is actually, I think it was amended and changed fairly decently. Originally, what it was it was introduced because the constituent was sort of ran into some issue with someone flying a drone.
Wasn't that a former legislator, former senator?
Yeah, it was a political thing.
Okay,
so
that's what I thought.
yeah, but I'm trying to look it up. So there is 76-2-106 Commission of Offense with aid of unmanned aircraft system. An actor may be found guilty of an offense if the actor commits the offense with the aid of an unmanned aircraft and the unmanned aircraft system for the unmanned aircraft is under the actor's control at the time of the offense. Something like that is not too bad.
So that's basically extenuating circumstances. Like if you have a robbery with a gun, not only do you have the robbery charge, but you then have an extenuating circumstances. Not extenuating. That's not the right word. Okay, Mr. Lawyers, what's the word I'm looking for? Aggravating or whatever. I don't know. But if you use a gun, it's another charge or it's a worse charge. So I don't know. I guess, yeah, that's not too bad. I still like everything to be agnostic when it comes to drone regulation or actionable regulation. But, we can't win everything, nor should we try, which we'll talk about when we get to the Oregon State Park thing. But so anything else on Oregon, or not the Oregon thing, the Utah thing we need to worry about, or just kind of keep an eye on that. And we'll put links below to all this stuff in the description like we always do. So we'll get that pushed out. And if we need to, we'll write an article as well to kind of get a little more playtime on that.
And and it's also looking at sort of urban air mobility and how to prepare the state for urban air mobility as well. So this one wasn't too bad.
Glad to hear. We know it was at first because it was like aerial trespass and all that fun stuff.
I think that was a separate bill.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe that's the one that died. Okay. Well, let's talk about a fun one. The Wyoming one. That one, our good friend Scott, who was with us, now he's with AUVSI. So that's awesome. We love having Scott Stoffman there for us. He sent this out to us. This was introduced earlier this month, I think, actually. And it was introduced like 3 days before the session was over. So it's almost like, a cop at the end of the month who hasn't written enough tickets yet starts writing tickets. I mean, I know they don't do that. That's probably a bad analogy because I do like police officers. They're awesome people. And it's like, oh, I need a couple more bills. Let's throw this one. It's probably the worst written one I've ever seen.
Yeah. Criminal trespass by drone. If you fly under 200 feet over private land without authorization. It's like, really?
That's about as bad as it gets.
Fortunately, it was not considered for introduction. So
no, it wasn't. It was like, it's funny. There were four. I think there were 4 different sponsors. There's 3 in the House and one in the Senate, I believe, is how it works. Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
Summers, Neiman, Still, and then Senator Driscoll.
Yep.
So it was just interesting. I did email them all. We talked about that at the meeting. The membership meeting we had, but never heard back from them. So that's cool. I mean, that's 2 hours north of me. So that one was kind of close to home, and I do fly in Wyoming. So I was kind of interesting when I found out about that one.
Yeah, you can kind of tell that it was kind of thrown together there at the end. I mean, there's not a whole lot of substance to it.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, well, you're going to be charged criminal trespass and it'll be a misdemeanor or whatever. And here, take this up, please.
Yeah, exactly. It was an interesting reason to do that.
Okay.
Yes.
So the one we were concerned about in Utah was actually Senate Bill 68. So that's
68
which is criminal trespass. Yeah.
68.
Yeah. Senate Bill 68.
So Utah. So we'll put is it something we need to write an article about?
No, we've already written a letter of opposition. So it's
okay.
Good.
So we'll just, if you're in Utah or fly in Utah, again, that's just next door as well. So I do fly in Utah for clients. So I'll have to keep an eye on that one as well. But does it say where it is? Are you can you tell from what you're looking at if it's in committee or anything?
Not at the moment. I can take a look in a second.
We'll figure it out. If it's something we need to worry about, we'll push it out.
No, I don't think so.
Cool. Okay. So let's talk about Wisconsin. And if there ever was a politically driven bill, this was it. This is Senate Bill 868, and it is titled An Act to Create 114.147 of the statutes relating to restriction of state or local government acquisition, possession, or use of certain drones. And it calls out DJI specifically. It's an anti-DJI bill. There's just no, I mean, I don't get it. I mean, I understand that a lot of people feel there are some issues with that. I'm on record, and so is Kenji, on how we feel about that. But why do that?
Yeah.
Is that a fair question? I'm sorry.
No, I think it is. And, you know, when we look at the utility of drones, I mean, there's certainly a hierarchy of drones out there that can perform duties to a better degree than others. And I think, I don't know if I'm speaking on your behalf or not, but I think when it comes to DJI's products, I think most people can agree that their products perform, you know, far superior to others, right? And so coming back to this Senate bill and Assembly bill, to limit the use, especially in scenarios and by people who are going to use it to help the public, I think that's a bad move. So that's just my personal opinion, but it's kind of, you're right, Vic. It's certainly become a topic over the past year, maybe year and a half. DJI's ties with China. So, you know, I don't know. It doesn't seem right to me.
No, it doesn't.
Certainly motivated by politics, I think.
Well, if it was purely an issue with safety, it would be like what we see in other places in Florida and in DC, would be you know, a country of origin ban, basically. But this called out DJI specifically. It did not call out Autel, who was also made in Shenzhen, China. It did not call out the multitude of other drones that are out there. You know, we know DJI and Autel are the two big ones that are used in search and rescue. And they're just they're the hot buttons right now politically. And Kenji always has a great answer to that, which is, let's see if he can pull it out of his hat.
What do you mean?
Don't give us a country of origin ban. Give us what?
Yeah, standards, and like cybersecurity standards,
Yeah.
and to which every single manufacturer needs to adhere to, because you could have a domestic manufacturer that sources all their stuff in the US that could be full of security holes, and guess what? It's even worse. So that's why you have industry standards. Everybody has to sort of adhere to them, and I'd say it would be the minimum floor of cybersecurity that everybody needs to have. I mean, but it also has to be risk appropriate. I mean, if you got a teller, who cares? What's the security risk in that? But again, if you have operations that need to be more secure, you need to have those standards set for those. So everybody has to adhere to them if they're going to be allowed near, say, for example, like critical infrastructure or near military bases. It just makes sense.
Yeah.
So don't take away our tools that do the best job for the least amount of money, based on things that aren't really relevant. It's like, make the regulations on what is relevant, and there you go.
Right. And one of the fun things that somebody brought this up when we were talking about Florida, I wish I'd have thought of it, but I didn't, and I can't remember who did, so I can't give him credit. But what drone is used by more schools than any other drone to teach kids about drones? It's the Spark and the Tello. Those are DJI drones. So you're going to have to use more expensive drones that are less capable until, you know, a American company out there, make it, love it, go for it. You're gonna sell a ton of them. But until then, you know, what are you going to do? Again, standards. And the Senate bill, and I guess, yeah, there were sister bills on this. It was no local governmental unit or state agency may acquire a restricted drone 1 year after the effective date, and after the effective date may not possess these drones. So what are you going to do? You know, how many first responders use anything except Autel or DJI? So that's unfortunate.
I hear Kitty.
Yeah, darn it.
Yeah.
I thought I shut my door to my office. Obviously, I
But
didn't.
Vic, going back to Senate Bill 68 in Utah, it's there is still some concerning language in there, especially around the idea that there's criminal trespass with a drone. So, but I haven't heard much after we sent in our letter. Probably during our next update meeting that we have with the group that we have that is monitoring all this stuff, we'll have a better idea what the status of that is. And then post that, we can, if we need to call in the troops and let everybody know, say, hey, we need this, we'll definitely let the word out. So
perfect. So, we sit here and talk about things we don't like. And this one I actually found through the AUVSI update, that one of the things they like. So there's a drone law that they're, and I didn't tell you guys about this. Sorry, I should have, that they support, and it's in New York. And it's actually, they're changing New York has an aviation registration system. And so what they're trying to do is specifically exempt drones. So there are legislators out there who care and want to help and want to do the right thing. So they don't want to charge $15 per drone per year if you fly more than 30 days in the city or state or whatever it is Washington's doing. Or is that Oregon? Who's doing that?
Washington.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So that kind of brings us up to date on the legislation we're watching. And sessions are winding down. So that's kind of nice. So we won't have to do too much of this, which is good also because our businesses are winding up. It's that time of year.
Yeah.
So let's talk. Tim, did you have anything you want to add? I'm sorry, I don't want to step over you.
No, it's okay.
Anything?
I think this is important to keep up to date. I mean, it seems obvious with legislation that regarding drones, but with any area of law and any sort of anything that impacts cases, that go to court, especially for areas in their infancy, and I would call the rules and regulations regarding commercial drones and public use of drones infant 2016. It's important to get it right the first time, because even though a statute in Michigan might not directly won't apply to a statute in Kansas or Missouri, legislatures in other states are looking, right? So you really want to make sure that whatever is proposed is not only accurate as far as who has what jurisdiction and what can be said, but every little thing will influence moving forward, and not only just the state it's in, but in other jurisdictions as well. So I commend you all for keeping up with this. I think it's very important. I tend to focus on the case law side of things, not so much the legislature, but I'm happy to keep these conversations going with you and with other people as well, because it is important. It may not seem like it, especially if it's not in your state, but it really is.
Yep.
So,
And agreed. And what's nice is most of the folks that we interact with in terms of an education standpoint, especially like Representative Van Schoak from Missouri, he was very open and willing just to talk to us. That we have not run across anybody who just says, no, don't want to talk to you. Most people love to be educated, hear different viewpoints, and see if we can help them come up with creative ideas. Because a lot of times we understand that there are issues and that there are certain fears and sort of actual bad things that can happen, but there's always better ways to address it. We're there to help. So
right, and most people don't usually know if there is a better way. They just kind of go with what they're told, and if they're not told an alternative view, or that they don't have the whole story, then they'll think that they're doing the right thing. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's good to have the full picture.
Exactly.
Most of the times their hearts are in the right place.
Yes.
Yeah.
Most of the time. There are some federal folks that probably would not fall into that category, but we're not going to talk about that.
Moving on.
Moving on quickly. Speaking of things happening in one state that will affect another state, Kenji, what's going on? What's the latest and the greatest with the park folks?
The park folks, they're still accepting comments. So I implore everybody out there to actually go to the website and comment on the proposed rulemaking. And just to give a refresher, what it's about is the proposed regulations involving drones in Oregon state parks. And why it's important is that it could set the bar for drones all across the US and state parks across the US as well, because as we noted, states look at each other and take example from each other. Another one is, for example, like Washington state parks. Right now, they're very hostile to
Same in
drones.
Colorado.
Yep. And if we can show them, hey, this is a great way to sort of manage drones, they might take another look at it. And what's unique about the process that we said was the proposed rule, and we need you to support it, says that drones are welcome everywhere, except for where, you know, there's conflicts and there's a process that you go through to say that these spots aren't good because there's lots and lots of people. And guess what? You shouldn't be flying there, taking off and landing from there anyways.
Right.
And that's another piece that's great about the Oregon State Parks regulation is they realize we can't manage the airspace. We can only manage takeoff and landing. So there you go. But there's going to be a lot of folks who want the converse of what we suggested, which is drones are banned everywhere until you go through a process. And that process is going to take a while for every one of the 280 state parks. And state park managers, you know, they got a lot of other stuff on their plate. So guess what? That's going to fall on the back burner. In essence, it's going to turn into a ban of drones at all state parks. And we don't want that. No. So we need you to support the language as is.
Yep. Now there's one of our compatriots who is asking people to write in and say, you can't ban drones at all. And we want to officially say that is the absolute 100% wrong attitude, because there are places we should not be flying. And we think that what you worked on, I'm going to give you props for that, because this is your language actually in the proposal, Kenji.
It
is a great compromise. Compromise is the art of, well, I won't use that expression. If everybody's happy, it's a good compromise, basically. Or if nobody's happy, it's a good compromise. And I think this is the former, not the latter. Yeah. So read it as is. Read the proposed rule and really comment that, you know, this is a very good, well-written, fair rule for all involved, because you've got one side who says no drones, you've got the one side who says no regulations, and both of them are wrong.
Yeah. And what's nice is the process to determine where you can't take off and land. That's going to include drone people as well. So that's the key thing, is it's going to be a very collaborative process to determine where you can't fly.
Yeah.
Or
which is
no, where you can't take off.
Oh, you can. Yeah, there you go.
No, that's great. That's great work. I think that's a perfect meet in the middle kind of thing, right?
Well, let's cover two more real quick items.
Sure.
One is going to be short because you can't talk about it yet, but where are we at with the BVLOS ARC, Beyond Visual Line of Sight Aviation Rulemaking Committee?
Yeah, we're balloting.
Tim was waiting for this one.
Yeah, the balloting is happening right now, and our ballots are due March 3rd. And then after that, it gets forwarded on to the FAA. And sometime after their review, it'll get published made public.
Now, explain what that committee actually is going to do real quickly, I should say. I mean, don't go into the whole deep and stuff with it, but any aviation rulemaking committee, that's not like, here, FAA, here's what you're going to do it.
No, it's a set of recommendations in terms of rule changes, potential rule changes, things that they should consider when it comes to BVLOS. And then that goes to the FAA. They'll look at it and say, okay, we agree with some of this stuff. We don't agree with some of the other stuff. And then here's a series of, eventually what they'll do is they'll come out with an NPRM, notice of proposed rulemaking with proposed rules around BVLOS. And then that goes through a public comment period. And then after the comments are adjudicated, so to speak, then the final rule comes out.
So our grandchildren will be able to take advantage of this. No,
Yeah.
I'm kidding. It's, 2 or 3 years, I think, is reasonable. Optimistic, but reasonable.
Yeah.
And until then, we'll all just sit there and fill out BVLOS waivers which I put my third one in this morning.
Oh, did you? Oh, geez.
So we'll see on that one, and we're waiting to hear on yours as well.
Yeah.
So local BVLOS.
And the other thing too is if some of the recommendations that I made make it through, we'll be very happy.
Yeah. And be excited about that.
Yeah. Totally.
And Jay Merkel did mention that it's coming out. So he has spoken. Let it be said, let it be written, or whatever it was that Yulbrenner said. So, which brings us to the AAC, the AAAC. That was fun. You had a lot of comments.
Me?
Yeah, you commented on just about everything.
Oh yeah. Because the more interaction there is, and the thing is, if you don't speak up, nobody else will.
Right.
It's an interesting group. There are some very smart, well-spoken individuals, but when you have to ask the hard questions, you have to ask the hard questions. And what was nice was one of the issues was airspace, and it was after the presentation with LADOT with the sort of the framework on advanced air mobility. And one of the things that I was concerned about was saying, hey, there's sort of they didn't come out right out and say it, but it was implied that they could manage the airspace. And I said, hey, is there an implication that you're going to manage the airspace? They're like, absolutely not.
Perfect.
The airspace is under the management of the FAA. And she even said, I'll double down on this.
Yeah, she was she had a great presentation.
Great presentation. Salita did an awesome job. So, we put that out there, and that is one of the most key elements, I think, that came out of that presentation, was her saying that.
Yep. And it's the new tasking. Noticed. It's the new tasking group. So we, the AAAC members got the tasking paperwork today. It's public knowledge, I think. I don't know. We can't share it right now, I don't think, but it is. I think it's a public document.
Well, what it is we can talk about the tasking because it was announced.
That's true.
The AAC is to provide comments on the FAA's draft strategic framework for advanced air mobility, which means there's a draft framework. We'll just take a look at it and start providing feedback, and we'll be involved directly. I know I'll be volunteering. Vic, if you do, great. If you don't, you're flying.
Well, if you do, I won't need to, because you and I can talk in one voice.
Yeah, because there might be something that impacts our operations.
Oh, there absolutely will be. Which you and I were talking after the meeting. I kicked myself for saying it. They're not saying it, but yeah, we're going to make sure that the small and the recreational, but the small 107 operations have a voice. The 400,000 number that Jay put out, the 400,000 number of voices. We're going to make sure that tasking group hears them. Yep. I personally, I'm not real bullish on advanced air mobility. That's just me being an old crotchety fart. But I don't think it's going to be quite like the people think it will. I think it's going to be awesome for those who use it. But we're not going to have the skies darkened with air taxis, I don't think. That's just my point. I
mean, it'll be a great way to get from point A to point B, but I don't think there's going to be an airport in everybody's backyard.
No. In LA, New York, Chicago, Seattle, where it takes so 20 hours. With sound, there's so many issues with there's just a lot of issues, and that'll need to be addressed. And I get where a lot of concern is coming from, but I think this is another mode of transportation that's going to help out a lot. Right. And I like some of the illustrations that Melita, what was her name? I'm sorry. Dalita used. Salita. I'm sorry if you hear this. I butchered your names. But one was the picture of the personal helicopter in the backyard of somebody's nice Bel Air type house. And then, of course, the Jetsons. Jay said she had to take the Jetsons thing out, but I think it needs to stay in. That's just me. Because everybody hears the sound of the Jetsons spaceship car when they see that noise. So, or when they see that video. There was one other thing we need to talk about. What was it?
Oh, Seattle
Film. Yeah. Seattle Film Commission.
Yeah.
Taylor's great to work with. So Taylor, if you see this, you're awesome. Thank you very much. And you and he hit it off today. So talk about that.
Oh yeah, I chimed in. He's looking for some members that were more affiliated with the film and television industry. So I provided a name that I've known for a long time. Nick Colias is a fantastic pilot out of the Seattle area, and getting him plugged in. He's worked with that crew for about 20 years anyway. So it's great to have his voice on there. So Nick volunteered, and there's another name. I won't say it right now, but he's another potential person to help out as well.
And this all came about because the way it was written to begin with, and again, we've talked about this, that they're great regulations for big productions. I mean, it explains what everybody needs to do, and explains to the production crew, you better have a pilot that's, certificated, all that stuff. But it was so broad that it caught the real estate folks, and it caught people, and I emailed them today. I said, hey, this is what I do. Would I have to get a permit? No, you don't have to get a permit. It's construction. It's, T technically said it's sort of like real estate. I cringe at that because I don't shoot real estate, but
you're an architect.
I'm an architectural photographer. And he goes, yes, they're trying to tighten up the language. So we actually submitted 8 or 9 or 10 names to be part of this. And he goes, no, we need the other folks. We need the people who are actually going to use the film permit process to give us input. And those other people, the language is going to be written in such a way that they're going to understand, hey, they don't need it. He's also, if people did call the commission and ask about it, he said, no, you guys don't need it. So the whole point of this process was to really tighten up the language. So Tim's raising his hand. Does he have a question?
Oh, no, I'm just listening to you.
Okay.
It's very nice.
Yeah.
And one of the other places he's talking to is Denver Film Commission. So that can be a double-edged sword, because for the longest time, Denver Film Commission did not like drones. If you applied for a permit and said drones, no, they shut you down. They've relaxed a little bit. Now it goes to the Department of Public Safety. So that's kind of nice. But one of the things I really like about the Denver film permit process is, unless you're blocking a sidewalk or a street, or if you have more than 5 people, including talent, you don't need a permit. No. Yeah. The other way around. If you do that, you do need a permit. And so people like myself, who may fly with a couple of BOs, and occasionally we'll have talent. When we don't block sidewalks, we'll take off from private property. We don't need permits. So that's really kind of a cool way that Denver's gotten around that. And I'm hoping that Taylor and the Seattle Film Commission also do kind of incorporate the number in there, because that's really going to cut down on work they got to do. If you're filming a car chase scene and you've got, a semi trailer full of cars and talent and HMU and security, yeah, you need a permit. You need a permit. There's no question about it. And Seattle's done a great job of writing it for that. They just caught everybody else too. Not their intention.
Yeah.
Not their intention.
And in neighbor to South Oregon, it's Taylor talked to us too. And fortunately, we have a state preemption statute that prevents localities from regulating drones. So it's like, sorry.
And we're working on that.
Yeah, but although there is film permit requirements, again, it's like,
which is fine.
If you block the sidewalk or do anything like that, you need a film permit, and that's just
a film permit that just happens to have drones, so that's not really a drone regulation.
Exactly.
So,
yep.
Cool.
Perfect.
So I think we covered everything we wanted to, and of course we went longer than 30 minutes. Again, one of these days we're going to have a 30-minute newscast. Not holding my breath, because you and I sit down there and talk, and Tim was a great addition. Appreciate hugely, is that a word? You joining us today, Tim, tonight. Tell your wife thank you for letting you stay late at work, because I know it's an hour later for you right now.
No, it's okay. I had a good time talking with you both, and happy to join another conversation if you'd like to.
Okay, you guys have it. You heard it here, so it's on record. It's on record.
Here's something I got, which was really cool. I got my delivery from Originaldo Bow. So I got my little FPV thing now mounted.
Oh, nice, Mr. Dobo. Yeah.
Don't you have a T-shirt too, Kenji?
You were going to show us your T-shirt.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. This is from the ARC. I think this was the most fun that I had on ARC. It's a
And there's Kenji.
Yep. It's like, look out, here I am.
That was, some of you know the story, some of you don't, but it's basically a funny story about some comments that weren't kept private. And I've got my Vic Ross t-shirt on the way from Ken Dobo. So maybe next time I'll have it and I'll wear that.
Yep. I guess that means I need a t-shirt too.
You got to get you a t-shirt.
Yeah.
It was great. It's this was from Google Wing. So
that was awesome. I think Ken's actually
folks.
sold a number of my shirts, so I better get one for free. He's using my face to make money.
Yeah.
No, he's using it for I can't remember what but he's using the money for good. So I'm not too worried about it. Yeah. So
that's awesome. He's a good guy.
So that's us today.
Which reminds me, we need to get on his show.
Yes, right. Ken, if you're listening, although by the time that, this is probably about Thursday, so he may actually reach out to us. But yeah, he's asked you on the show for talk about the state park.
Yep.
So, yep. Cool. Maybe he's waiting for my shirt, and that way I can be on there too with my shirt.
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
Well, if you like what we're doing, please subscribe and like us. You always got to say the YouTube stuff, like, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. Click the little join us, and we'll have links below. Join DSPA. Join our newsletter, which we're horrible about putting out right now, but we will get back on that again.
Well, and, we have articles popping up.
We have articles popping up. So in the newsroom and on our website, it's just the newsletter. It's not what we try. All volunteer organization, and then we don't get paid for this. So that's what happens, folks. So hopefully,
everybody we hire gets like upgraded to some awesome position. That's
we hired Scott. What did we pay him? Oh yeah, nothing.
No.
So we got a real job.
Tim, if you join us, you never know. You might become the head of Airbus or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. No one's offered me a job.
This is the launch of my future career. Huh?
There you go.
Exactly.
Hey, it's a great space to be in. No pun intended.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, go out there, fly safe, have fun. And this is Vic.
This is Kenji.
This is Tim.
Everybody have fun. Thanks for joining us.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
See ya.